I'm here with Don Beaty, President of DLP Associates, a long-term supporter of Data Center Dynamics. We're actually at the Data Center Dynamics Internet event in San Francisco. Don has been presenting, running a number of panels over the last 2 days, so rich with lots of new information. I just had one question for you for this little brief interview. What do you think is the biggest problem that the data center industry faces today?
Good question. In a way, it's similar to what ASHRAE tried to solve years ago. Years ago, ASHRAE focused in on bridging facilities cooling with hardware cooling. Those two, IT and facilities. And I think that they've done a pretty good job from that standpoint. But now what's happened is software's eating the world, and so that makes for a more complicated problem, because now we have basically three different factions. We have software, we have hardware, and we have facilities. Each has a different vocabulary, and each is not that interested in the other. And therefore we have, in a way, three silos. And that's a really tough problem to solve, because there's a lack of interest in solving it. They're all trying to focus in on their own areas. So I think as we move forward, that's really the thing to figure out, how to bridge the gap, the knowledge gap, the communication gap amongst those three areas.
Okay, and how's that going to be bridged? You're saying there are three silos and people not talking kind of like to each other. They speak different languages. Is there a way forward, or will software just bridge that and these people will still not speak to each other?
Well, I think that, good question. I think that people in general think if they ignore it, it'll go away, so to speak. And so one of the fundamental problems is that the containerized workload at the software end really changes the dynamic on facilities. And so people are going to be designing facilities and not have the right amount of capacity, because really that work profile is what matters. So the virtualization of hardware, so we have that. Now we have this orchestration there at the software workload level, becomes so portable that it really impacts our systems. And if we haven't planned, if we don't understand that, there's no way we're going to design the proper amount of power or cooling, and so we're going to end up with failed projects and failed businesses.
Okay. I was hearing a lot today about software defined and then automation, and there were people saying how they were trying to remove people from the equation. One of the comments was, well, who's looking after the machine? You know, fat fingers create failures. Where do you see that lie? You come traditionally from the design and build world. How do you keep people out of the data center? Is it actually possible, or is it ruinous?
It's a good question. Well, fundamentally, the people are unpredictable. So that's always been a weak point in design, in construction, and operation. And typically, human beings are self-protecting. So they build fat in, and they do things to protect themselves as opposed to the good of the whole. And so that's a never-ending battle. When you automate, you're really supposed to be doing things manually first. Prove it out, proof of concept. But as we get to these more abstract, larger things, it's harder and harder to do. So it's a tough problem. I don't have a solution for that, but it's a good point. The fat fingers syndrome is a big one.
Yeah. And I guess the cascade of failures happens in a very different way in this new type of environment.
Yes, but then we have the randomizing type of testing of software. For example, what Netflix does with their primate kind of metaphor of the monkey and the gorilla and the Kong and so forth, and through the randomizing kind of approach, it's able to ferret out and find failures much faster, potential failures. And so us on the facilities side, we don't believe that software is reliable, and they're always going to need us. But there's a lot of good work going on at that software end.
So that's interesting, because we've spent many years, the first iteration really of the data center world was about availability, and it was about tiers, and it was about building bricks and mortar,
yes,
and engineering systems and pipes to work in a certain way. Now we start looking at a more application-centric way,
yes,
about uptime. Does that remove the need to do good engineering?
On the surface it does. But if you look at the trend, basically the first thing we had to do was to switch to zone the data center. So have different reliability zones, have different density zones, different flexibility zones. And so right now, the innovation on a technology side, there's not that much to do. But on figuring out how to make physical assets as flexible as software and meet those needs that are unpredictable, that's quite a problem. You could solve it if you want to over-design by a significant amount, but no one can afford that. So affordable future-proofing is a major engineering problem to solve, and an important one.
Thank you, Don.